Good evening. I'm going to call this September 2024 meeting of the Burlington Electric Commission to order. We meet on the second Wednesday of the month at 5 o'clock here at 585 Pine. As always, the public ratepayers welcome to join us down here, join the conversation. Bring us your thoughts, suggestions, concerns, all that good stuff. Bring it down. It's all very welcome. We're going to start with the first item on the agenda is the agenda. Do we have any changes or additions to the agenda? I have two, and that's just we're going to move the Commissioner's Corner from number 8 to number, what will be, it'll come just after public forum and before the manager's update. Actually, I think that's the only one. Let's move that move number 8 to number 4. That's about it. Does anybody else have any adjustments? Agenda? Second item on our agenda, we have 3 sets of meeting minutes. We'll vote on all 3 separately, but does anybody have any substantive changes to any of them that we should discuss before doing that? All right, great. So all those in favor of the July 10th, 24 meeting minutes as presented, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say nay. 5 ayes, no nays. The July 10th, 24 meeting pass. All those in favor of the August 1st, 2024 special meeting of net zero energy and grid reliability revenue bonds as presented, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed indicate by saying nay. 5 ayes, no nays. August 1st meeting minutes passed. And then all those in favor of the August 22nd, 24 special meeting of the Burlington Electric Commission and the TUC, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed indicate by saying nay. 5 ayes, no nays. The August 22nd, 24 meeting. Next up, we have public forum. Are there any members of the public either here or online that would wish to address the commission? I see nobody in the audience. We haven't been online. Okay. Again, as always, we're here the second Wednesday of the month, 5 o'clock, right here at 585 Pine. Again, the public ratepayers are always welcome to join us and express your concerns, comments, whatever comes to mind. All right, we'll move on to Commissioner's Corner. Do the commissioners have anything that they'd like to bring up that's come up in the last month or so that they'd like to bring up before? Nothing?
The only thing I'll say is I did hear from a constituent about the rate hikes for small business owners.
Okay.
Right up to the level. I guess it's if you're a small business owner, whatever the increase was, they're feeling it.
Okay.
Yeah. And I know we've had 2 in a row, right? 2 like 5% or
We've
something.
had two of the identical, 5.5.
Yeah. And so and this is somebody owns a corner store, so a lot of refrigeration doors opening and closing.
Yeah.
So a lot of electricity. And she has invested in some new equipment, which she said, had she not done that,
Yeah, I mean, we would always offer to a customer like that if they want efficiency. Look at any other opportunity after you provide rebate. But appreciate the feedback.
okay.
So,
And I can offer that to her. I don't know if she knows that that's available, but
yeah.
I can definitely mention that. And then I also thought that the next ones are going to be smaller, right? Because we had to catch up, and then the idea is to do small increases every year rather than periodically.
Yeah, our goal and what we're kind of modeling going forward is less than 5 points. Our goal. We always have to reserve the right to do what we need to do in the moment, depending on a variety of factors. But as we're modeling, as we're projecting, as we're building towards FY26, the goal is definitely to be lower than 5.
For clarification, I think you said on a number of occasions we're trying to get down to the level of where there was a threshold that we
Yes.
wanted to stay below.
If you're at 3% or less, you don't have to litigate a rate case automatically. Compelling aspects to that, certainly customer standpoint and from staff time. So that's certainly a target, whether it's coming year or the following year. 3% range is much better, and it's within the range of that's definitely where we aim to be.
Are there any other commissioner corner discussions? No. Then we'll move on to general manager update with Ringer.
Thank you. Maybe just, I'll stay on the topic of costs for a moment. One of the items that's in the report here is something related to cost that we're hearing from some customers about, which is the processing fees as part of the FY25 budget. We and a number of other departments within the city started having customers directly pay payment processing vendor through the city. This is an item that had previously been covered in rates, essentially. Not all customers Paymentus, which is our payment processing system. So that's a new fee for customers who are using it. It's $3.50. It's definitely something that's been a concern for some customers. The customer care team is doing a lot of work to communicate. It's not a fee for us. It does not go to be or to our bottom line in any way. It's simply a pass-through cost that we had been absorbing. I think I referenced with the commission, it started off being like a $5,000 a year kind of cumulative cost back in 20. Now up to $300,000 a year. So you're talking about, 0.5% or more of rate pressure at that level. And obviously not all customers use that. Some may bring a check in or mail a check in or do other things to avoid paying that fee. So it's quintessentially the type of fee that should be paid by the broader rate base. But the changeover, I know, has been a little jarring for some of our customers. We're communicating as much as possible. We have a website link, which I've included here in your report. It's burlingtonelectric.com/avoid-fee for ways that you can pay without incurring the processing fee. And we are going to look at, in the future, different ways that intersects with our energy assistance program, and if there's anything additional we can do, in future budget years to help support our energy assistance program customers in particular with those types of fees that could be a challenging thing. So wanted the commission to be aware of it and know that we're also aware of it if you do hear about it. We're hopeful that once we get through the September kind of changeover that it'll be a little more predictable for folks as they understand the different ways to pay. But so we understand that there's a lot of affordability challenge and we're trying to mitigate as best we can. Kind of along that line, the next item in the report is a positive piece when it comes to affordability for customers, which is the permanent tariff that was adopted for the energy assistance program. We were able to auto-enroll using that new authority, using information we have. So we were able to add 482 customers to the program in August. Previously we had been fewer than 300, and I think at the time we looked at making this change, we were in the low 200 range in terms of folks who were signed up. So it's really kind of approximate tripling of the enrollment of the program in one single measure. Really kudos to our team for, who was working on this to make the policy change, to enroll the customers, to think about this from an equity standpoint. A lot of folks put some work into this, and that's definitely, meaningful 12.5% discount for 482 customers who are eligible and weren't receiving it. So we're hopeful between that effort and then, further coordination within the city that the mayor is very interested in on making sure that people can access programs across departments and sign up for things and be eligible for things across departments as much as possible. We're hopeful to make even more headway on that as we go forward.
Darren, can I ask you a question about that?
Absolutely.
Question and comment, I guess. The question is, how do we know that people are eligible? Is there some data signal? And then the comment is, just kudos to you all for doing that. That's an incredible number and an incredible impact on a lot of households, and I just think it's really awesome work. So
yeah,
thank you for doing that.
No, absolutely. We don't do income verification. We rely on external verifiers. So if somebody's Section 8 or on fuel assistance, receiving low-income weatherization, different things, certain services within the city, if you're eligible for the lead program, for example.
Yep.
And so this change is really about taking, we had made it though, it was something you had to affirmatively do. You had to opt in essentially, and we changed it to, if we know the information, we're gonna have you opt out if you don't want to participate, but we're gonna use all the data that we have from our partner organizations, and be able to auto-enroll folks. So that was the step that we took. I think there's more opportunity there potentially. Not every program within the city is using exactly the same metrics or the same criteria. We line up with the CETO metrics, which are the same for the lead program and similar to what other the two other utilities that have a energy assistance type program, VGS and GMP, use similar criteria. We have different discount ranges, but I think there's more we can do, like throughout the city, just to make sure every department is aware of the opportunity to share this information, work really collaboratively. So we're gonna continue on this path. This is just kind of the first, but very meaningful step to get something done. Yeah. So jumping back up the page, which I've now lost because our packet is an incredible 221 pages. I'm back to where I wanted to be. The Net Zero Energy Grid Reliability Revenue Bond that you all looked at and approved, sending to the council, had been approved unanimously by both the Board of Finance and the City Council for placement on the November ballot. So we will have a November ballot item. Emily and I have a column, and I think the North Avenue News that just went out, right? So in people's mailboxes this week that discusses some of the benefits of the bond, why we're pursuing it, what it's intended to do, addresses some of the key items around the bond, number one being always that it's not a property tax impact, that it's paid for by the revenues from the electric department, and that it can help us with keeping that near-term rate pressure much, much lower while we invest in the infrastructure that we want. Very salient point now, which we've talked about in the past, is this is a matching fund opportunity as well. And we'll get into, in a moment, the EV charging grant and more comprehensively with Emily in a little bit. But having these matching funds is really, really valuable when we have the EV charging grant, we have the Department of Energy GRIP grant. We have two really tangible opportunities to use future revenue bonds to bring in even more dollars to the city. We're going to be, we've reached out to every MPA in the city. We've scheduled, I think, about half of them starting in late September. Some of them are pending for October, but we're going to go around, talk to every MPA, answer any questions. We will have some website materials, just some kind of FAQ type materials that'll be on the website in the near future. And obviously, if commissioners have ideas for how to share information about the bond, using either these materials or others that we'll develop, we're glad to work with you. Our role here is very much to share information. We're not advocating for anyone to vote a particular way. That's not our role as city staff, but we want to make sure people have the information that they need to make an informed decision, that we can answer questions. So there may be opportunities to help with information sharing, or we may see some of you at NPAs in the future. But wanted you to be aware of that. Because we didn't really have a meeting in August, this was an item that I think you all looked at back in July, if I'm remembering correctly. So we've had some activity since then. On the EV charging grant, we're going to do a presentation with some slides, so I'm going to hold on getting into that item for the most part, other than just to say incredible opportunity for us in Burlington to be the only entity selected in the state of Vermont in this latest round of infrastructure investment and Jobs Act funding through this charging and fueling infrastructure program. It was an amazing team effort at BED, cross-disciplinary, cross-division, collaborative. You can imagine this type of application takes just a ton of work, both in putting together the narrative, putting together the plan. We've presented, I believe, on the plan here previously, the EV charging plan. So just a major kudos to our entire team that worked on it. And Emily certainly played a major role in putting the application together and managing that effort. So we're going to dive into more details so the commission can be aware of exactly how it's going to work, but obviously a big item for us. Two other items that you looked at last month, the RFPs for McNeil and for forestry were at City Council just this week on Monday. We had a 10-2 vote to advance both of those and have those posted as written. There were no amendments offered. We did have a little bit of back and forth discussion based on a few council questions. We had a couple of folks who have commented at the joint meeting, who commented as well at the City Council meeting, two of whom are interveners in our IRP on the same subject. But we're pleased with the outcome there. We think we have, with the RFPs, two good opportunities. One, to try to confirm for the community, to the extent anybody is skeptical, exactly how our forestry process works, and that the data that we've collected and third parties have collected can be reconfirmed in an audit. That will be helpful. But secondly, with the forestry RFP, I'm hopeful we'll learn something about how we can do even more and do even better in that regard. So we're looking for opportunities for improvement there. And on the emissions reduction assessment, I see great opportunity for improved efficiency, looking at innovation, looking at different ways that we can utilize the site, looking at ways we can reduce the environmental footprint of the site, reduce emissions and other impacts, and think creatively about it, while also hopefully getting analysis that really clarifies for folks, if you were without McNeil and you wanted to replace it with renewable energy and storage, exactly what types of renewable energy and scale are we talking about? Because I think that'll be a useful metric for people to understand exactly how that works. And I think one of the things we made clear on Monday evening, and the mayor made clear as well, is we are not interested in moving backwards to nuclear and fossil fuel. I believe a lot of the work that got us to 100% renewable started with this commission, working with BED to move away from nuclear, move away from fossil fuel. There were a couple suggestions, that, why don't we go back to that? I was really clear in my comments. The mayor was really clear in her comments. That's not something we're looking at. We're moving forward. We want to be 100% renewable. And if we're ever going to look at moving from a renewable to a different source, it's going to be to another lower impact renewable. It's not going to be to fossil fuels or nuclear. So certainly that was an interesting part of the conversation. But I think these RFPs give us a good opportunity in the here and now to look at ways we can improve on McNeil. I think that that's something we should always be interested in, and I think a lot of the community is interested in that too. And then one last item on our report here is Defeat the Peak. We've had 2 events this summer. We usually have more than that. I guess it's going to be warm next week. Who knows? Maybe we get another event. I don't know. We had 2 nonprofit partners joining with us. We had the Scout Troop 658, selected by Carolyn Canavan, who was our Jim Reardon Award winner, a member of our line crew. And they are they're based in Winooski and do a bunch of work in Burlington that's really great for the community. And then Cathedral Square, which provides great affordable housing and services, particularly for older adults in the community as well. Those were our 2 nonprofit partners for Defeat the Peak. Last item, not on the list here, but I just wanted to remind the commission, we are coming up very soon, within 10 days, Net Zero Energy Festival, 3rd annual, right here, Saturday, September 21st, 10 to 2, rain date on the 22nd. Just had the art hop here in the south end. I was able to join with my family. It's nice to see so much activity. Hopefully we'll add to that a little bit on the Saturday of the Net Zero Fest, weather permitting. We have a great event this year. We try to do bigger and better each time. We have EV test drives, e-bike test rides. We have a bike tune-up, so if people bring a bike, needs a little work, we'll have a free bike tune-up through Old Spokes Home, valet bike parking with Local Motion. Mike and Mary from Star 92.9 are going to be there, broadcasting live from 10 to 12. And they are going to be running ads on Star 92.9 advertising the festival in the upcoming days. We've got Champ from the Lake Monsters. We'll have our electric bucket truck. We've got the Fletcher Free Library, Echo, and Veep doing kids activities related to energy. We'll have raffle prizes that have been donated from Ace Hardware, from the Lake Monsters, from the Vermont Green, from Ski the East. So great raffle prizes. We'll be awarding a Net Zero Energy Award for the 2nd year in a row. We've actually gotten a number of nominees. I think we may have an individual and an organizational award this year. So hope you can all join us if you're able. Hope you can share information about the festival through your various channels, whether social media or Front Porch Forum. It's up on our website, burlingtonelectric.com/festival. And just prior to that, next week, on the 17th, we're having a noontime free webinar with Rewiring America. And they're a great group. If you're not familiar, they've done a lot of great work as the umbrella organization for electrification at the national level, policy work, educational work. And so they're going to join us for a webinar that they've hosted elsewhere for an hour. It's free for Burlington residents, for Vermonters who are interested. It's going to have more of a Burlington and BED focus, so Burlington is definitely the audience, but anyone's welcome to join. And I think we've sent the link out, so if you can share that with anybody in your networks, we're hoping to get a big registration, have a good impact with that. And then Rewiring America is going to be at the festival. They're going to have one of our surface hubs here be demoing live for folks the electrification savings calculator that they've developed. So you'll be able to punch in, where you live, what your zip code is, some different information, and then you're able to get customized information back on what rebates you're eligible for under federal, state, and local BED incentives. So they can give you the whole package, easy to understand calculator. So they'll be there, and we also have some great technology demos that are going to be with us for the festival as well, including our Delta Climb winner, which was modularly. They're going to have that battery that plugs into the wall and does energy storage through a 120 volt as opposed to a hardwired into your panel. So they're going to have demos of that, and we're going to try to sign some customers up to partner with us on demoing that technology. So we welcome your assistance, sharing any and all information about the webinar and the festival. And with that, I will stop.
Quick question on the webinar, if that's okay. Do you know if a recording will be made available? I have a conflict at that time, but great.
It will.
Awesome.
Yeah, we'll definitely post it. We want lots of people live, so we have good questions, but we'll definitely make a recording available as well.
Fantastic.
Other questions? Yeah, I encourage everyone to go to the Net Zero Festival. It is kind of a lot of fun. This place gets rocking. It's a good time.
Live music.
Live music even, so there you go. All right, we're on to item number 5 on our agenda. That would be the August FY25 financials with Emily.
Good evening. Okay, so July net income, we had a net income of $305,000 compared to a budgeted net income of $655,000, so $350,000 worse than budget. The big story with that is that most of the variance is due to the timing of budgeted grant revenues and capital contributions. So the fundamentals of the actuals are actually much better than the bottom line result would suggest. So
See that next month or the month after, catches up?
Uh,
Ideally, yes, we'll catch that up as the fiscal year goes on. So sales to customers were, had a positive variance for the month, small, of just under $90,000. Other revenues, a small negative variance, most of that returned from the EEU. Not a rec delivery month, so we didn't have any power supply revenues received or budgeted. Moving down to operating expense, net power supply expense was generally on budget, net overall. McNeil production was 57% under budget, so we saved on fuel. At the same time, purchase power was greater. You're familiar with this story. Wind production was down, as well as McNeil production, and then transmission was also over budget. So the fuel savings, the purchase power, and the transmission kind of netted each other out to be essentially on budget for power supply for the month of July. Other operating expense, we had a positive variance of around 10%, about $200,000. Lots of various items in there, labor, materials and supplies. Tier 3 compliance was less than budgeted. And then moving down, you can see just below the line of operating income, the other income and deductions, a $645,000 negative variance. And so most of that variance was just what turned out to be an incorrect assumption about when we would receive grant proceeds, specifically from the replacement of the Winooski 1 dam, which we're expecting to receive FEMA reimbursement from. And so but FEMA doesn't reimburse you till the project is done, and so when the project will be completed is different than when we assumed when we did the budget. So to your point, that should get caught up. So that's an overview of the income statement. Any questions before I move down?
That probably won't get caught up next month, though.
Correct.
That'll definitely be several months down the road, because we're working on that project in the next several months.
Yeah, and then completing the project and then completing the paperwork to actually accept the grant are two very different things. So.
That's fair.
Do we have enough money to cover it until then, or does that put us in a
We do.
in a bind? Or?
No.
Yeah.
You'll
Okay.
see. Yeah.
Moving down to capital spending, so the first month of the fiscal year, a lot of projects are not necessarily budgeted to be spent in July. We did purchase $577,000 of Velco equity in July as budgeted, so we've fulfilled our transmission budget for the year. That is catching up or completing the last half of a purchase we had deferred and made in 2 installments, so that's the second installment. And then moving down to cash, total operating cash for July was $7.568 million. That's just a smidge under budget. It was, budget was $7.664 million, so about $100,000 off of budget, not bad. And then looking at the credit rating metrics for July, first thing is a caveat in that the current column is a most recent 12 months column. The most recent 12 months includes June of 2024, which is not yet audited. So the June numbers could move, which would then affect your July 12-month ended results. So these are as things stand now, with June entries in their current form. We have a couple more adjusting entries to make. So with that caveat, debt service coverage ratio in good shape at 4.73, adjusted debt service coverage at 1.25. And then for cash, we didn't have a regular meeting in August where I would have gone through the June preliminary financials, but in the June preliminary financials, we did this bit of a different presentation in terms of days cash on hand because we made that change from the $5 million line of credit to the $10 million line of credit. And I think we internally are still kind of getting used to the new presentation, and so we may change this, but for now we thought it was most transparent to simply just show you all of 3 ways. So you can see what the days cash on hand would be at the bottom without any line of credit, assuming a $5 million and assuming a $10 million. The $10 million line is what we have in place right now.
And the 5's the way they would have seen it.
The 5's the way you would have seen
Previously.
it before.
Yeah.
So kind of trying to give you more information as we all kind of like recalibrate to what the right number should be, counting or not, counting the line of credit, so. And I think that was all I had on July financials, unless there are any questions.
I have a question. So regarding capital spending, is there any concern about being sort of underspent relative to budget? It looks like, there was 1.7 million budgeted in July and 900,000 spent. And I understand that there's seasonality and other things. And I was just curious if that is an indicator of any things that are off to a slow start or delayed.
Yeah, so one of those, I would say not a large concern. It's not unusual at all for there to be significant timing variances in budget versus actual for capital expenditures. One of the reasons for this variance is the timing of that dam replacement project, for example.
Okay.
Right? So, yeah, I would say not concerning.
Thanks.
Other questions?
First month of the fiscal year, right? So,
Right.
Just on the financials, I was curious, do we expect that we would have the auditors for the October meeting, or will we need a meeting at the end of October potentially?
The October meeting is early
It's
this
on the
year.
9th.
It's on the 9th. Let me check with Amanda.
'Cause we might
and
explore
see.
maybe-
The auditors officially begin their audit field work next Monday.
Okay.
I know the finance team is feeling in good shape, but there's only so much that they can sort of foresee at this point. So let me get back to you on that.
No, we
if I
might
can.
look into, depending on that and some other things, whether the October meeting date could be pushed back
Right.
a little bit.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Anything else on financials? Once? Twice? All right. We'll move on to item 6 on our agenda, charging and fueling infrastructure grant, also with Emily.
Okay. So I don't remember exactly what month I did this previously. Let me just look at something and I could maybe tell you. Oh, it looks like, sheesh, almost a year ago. Interesting. Okay. So in September 2023, I gave the commission at that time kind of an overview of not so much our grant application, but the EV charging plan that was the basis for the grant application, to update you on the work that the team did to think about how many chargers should we have in Burlington if EV adoption occurs the way we hope and want it to. So now, as you learned last month, we received the incredible news that we were successful and selected for an award in what the Federal Highway Administration is calling Round 1B. So a second notice of funding opportunity was issued this May. We applied in June 2023. We weren't selected in Round 1. And then when they sent out the Round 2 notice, they included a sort of a set aside for really good applications that weren't selected in Round 1. And we were invited to say, you know, do you want your application reconsidered? And we said yes, of course, and we were selected, which was amazing. So it is $4.89 million. Would fund our EV charging plan through 2030. The graph on the right I shared last September. Green line is kind of the cumulative number of EV chargers we'd have over time, with the little bars being the number of level 3s and level 2s that we'd install each year. So it's 153 level 2s over that period and 47 DC fast chargers. A bit about on the funding. So the total estimated cost of those 200 ports, and actually when I say 153, I should say that's ports, and that's 47 DC fast charging ports. So it's going to be fewer stations, right? Because some stations can have multiple ports. So the total estimated cost of that infrastructure is about $8.9 million. It's an 80% federal, 20% local cost share, but that cost share is determined net of revenue we would receive from the chargers. So from the 8.9 million, you back out what we estimate to be about 2.7 or 2.8 million of revenues we'll get from the chargers, and then you divide the remaining 6 point something million 80-20 between us and the federal government. Just a few things about the grant, some things that we'll need to be paying attention to administratively at BED. It has to comply with the national EV infrastructure standards, which are in federal statute. There's a Justice 40 requirement, the 40% of benefits flow to disadvantaged communities. That's sort of been defined by the federal government by census tracts designated as disadvantaged community areas, of which Burlington has 2, kind of the Pine Street Barge Canal area, like we're in one of them up through downtown, and then part of the Old North End is the second one. We'll have to follow federal procurement guidelines, and I'm sure we'll have to do a lot of reporting and a whole lot of other things, but those were the 3 big ones that occurred to me as I was preparing this. So I discussed last year, in our proposal, we thought about the potential sites on the right. And in our application, we talked about basically using public infrastructure where possible, publicly controlled sites like city parking lots or school parking lots or parks parking lots, on-street parking in certain neighborhoods, and we have already advanced and are trying that now with our 5 pole-mounted chargers. But then we also talked about, evaluating sites using criteria such as they have to be open to the public 24/7. You can't restrict it to be just employee only or customer only sorts of things. Proximity to things like amenities and, shopping and a bathroom and place to eat. Proximity to housing density and multimodal transportation. The Justice 40 or disadvantaged community census tracts I mentioned. Considering community preference for where people think chargers would be good to have. Looking at sites where we could go from, 4 ports, 2 stations today to kind of 6, 8 ports later. Kind of taking advantage of work already being done in the city and staying out of natural areas, obviously, and then looking at things like lighting and safety and kind of how the site feels in the community. So I said our plan is kind of intentional but flexible. Now we begin the real work of really kind of getting down to brass tacks with like, where are we going to put these and where will it work for the host institution or business or organization. We have, in June, we put a form up on our website to gather community input on charger locations. We've got 111 submissions as of a week ago. It was also part of our grant application and is still our intention to conduct neighborhood-specific outreach as needed. And we were thinking particularly of those areas of the city where there isn't a park or there isn't a city parking lot or there isn't, an obvious kind of publicly owned place where they could go, where the charger would have to go on private property or on the street somewhere. But developing a more detailed outreach plan is among our next steps as we think about, where to
Just a
put
quick
these.
question. It's actually more related to the previous slide, but do you, and there's a chance I asked this a year ago, but I can't remember. Are you overlaying any grid constrained areas to understand if there's like a bigger benefit from places that have potentially more flexibility in those installations?
I'm not sure engineering would say that we overlaid grid, but the engineering team was definitely involved in looking at sites and thinking about, as we considered, a given park or a school, kind of being aware of like what was happening electrically around those sites. So yes, I should have put that on the site selection criteria because it's definitely up there in terms of what make-ready work would be required to support it. From a grid perspective, definitely. Okay, so at this point, like we just learned we got the award. I went to my first welcome introductory recipient webinar today. I got another one next week, so we're kind of in the grant agreement negotiation process with Federal Highway Administration. We'll need to take the award to City Council. We have an internal working group that is looking through those 111 ideas we've gotten so far and starting to score and review them against those criteria. We'll be working on a community outreach plan, as I mentioned. And then also, looking at, the first wave of them and placing procurements for additional chargers and looking at vendors and that sort of thing. So that's what
So I have
Kinda
one
share,
question.
yeah.
What about, are you also thinking about operations and like ongoing maintenance of the facilities? 'Cause
Yes.
as and we've heard some stuff about the airport chargers not being well maintained. I don't know if you all have heard that or.
We have not, so that's interesting.
But, so I think just, again, like this idea that we're always getting bigger and bigger, we have to be able to take care of those things too.
Yeah, that should be on here, but we were just talking about that like on Tuesday. We've made some updates to job descriptions to reflect the charging infrastructure we have now and formalize roles and responsibilities and think about them differently, because even, having like almost 40 ports now is different than where we were when we had our first 3. But we need to evolve that and think about staffing and resourcing even further, definitely.
Along the same lines, how are we financing our portion? There was 3 different, there was a federal portion, there was a anticipated Yeah, so how are we financing the 1.22 million? And is it inclusive of maintenance, construction of, and the actual chargers and any other outside vendors that we might need to build these? Has that been included in in that $1.22 million estimate?
So the 1.22 million is the capital, so all of the costs here are the capital installation costs. So engineering, any civil work, the charger themselves, the installation of the charger. Nothing operational or maintenance, okay?
But at least, okay.
Yep. And then in terms of where the BED share comes from, that's where the revenue bond is great, the one we have, and hopefully if approved, the next one, to provide us the capital to support that match.
When we originally started talking about the revenue bond, I think we said it could support, several dozen new chargers on its own, or potentially more with the match. So now it can support, 200 new ones with the match.
Great.
Yeah.
But that's the estimate of how much revenue you're supposed to take in, right? The 2.8 or whatever?
Right, so there's a bigger outlay initially on the
Okay.
capital side.
And then you make that back over time.
And that's in that period, right?
That's right,
It's
that's
within
just
that
the revenue
install
between
period.
2024 and 2030.
Okay.
So the chargers will continue to dispense energy, obviously, after 2030, and that will be additional revenue, yeah.
I was curious how and if you track EV adoption or the amount of registered EVs around sites and how that grows or changes according to when a site pops up and what kinds of things change in those environments.
Yeah, we do track DMV EV registrations every year as part of our net zero reporting. We have not gotten to the level of detail, so we haven't gotten to level detail, and we would be limited in how detailed we could get in terms of looking at EV registrations in a given neighborhood or something. We would have access to information about which customers have received incentives from us, but we have certain terms and conditions on our incentives that some customers might not qualify for them, and DMV won't turn over, the list of all people and their addresses in the city who have registered an EV. So there would be some people potentially missing if they didn't apply for a rebate through us that we wouldn't know about. If that makes sense? Yeah.
I mean, the thing that I appreciate about the application was there had been some pretty complex regression modeling of the kind of linkage between EV charging and EV adoption. So I think we've tied out like a fairly clear linkage there that, this should, all things equal, improve our EV adoption rates relative to what we would see if we weren't making these investments. I agree with everything Emily just said about, it'd be interesting challenge to try to map things out by neighborhood, given some of the lack of data that we have. But I would also say in the, report, you can see kind of the session counts and the usage of the existing network, and certainly the DC fast charger has quickly become a major source of kind of revenue and usage relative to the level 2 network. I was just looking, it's over 8 megawatt hours this last month, 25% approximately of the total out of the 39 chargers that we have. And I think those level 3s potentially draw people in, even if they're not from Burlington, because you're going to get people who may be visiting or driving through or commuting or on a vacation. So those are going to have a very different usage profile and EV adoption linkage than I think the level 2s will, which are much more neighborhood and workplace and rental property and different things like that. So, but it's an interesting question. It'd be an interesting mapping exercise if we had all the data.
Yeah, I would say that even our level 2 chargers, even our level 2 chargers, the data we had at the time we had access to all of the information in terms of zip codes and things like that, said that more than half of the use of the level 2 public chargers was from non-Burlington residents. So, again, the public charger use is one thing, as Darren mentioned. Of course, there's workplace charger use, there's personal charger use. So, just knowing the number of vehicles registered in Burlington is only part of the equation anyway.
That was the point I was going to also make, it's just that hopefully that helps some Burlington tourism and draw of creating a even greater infrastructure of support. So that's great.
And yeah, I would expect too that level 3 might be even more external users than internal users, because again, that's the purpose of those, is people who are transient through the area.
If you're going from Montreal to Boston, it's a great place to stop.
Other questions?
No, super exciting, congratulations.
Yeah,
Congratulations. Thank you. All right, thanks.
Thank you.
All right, on to number 7 on our agenda, expected executive session regarding a cybersecurity update with Erica Perlin. Amanda, what did I get that?
I also
Finance
answered, hey,
Director
you.
Amanda's.
So I know we're gonna go into executive session, but if there's any way you can maybe, even if something, say, make some, even tee it up a little bit, whatever you
Sure.
could say publicly about where we're gonna talk
Sure.
about privately, that'd be great.
This is an annual presentation now. This is our 3rd year presenting an overview of our cybersecurity and infrastructure operations to the commission.
Fair enough. So since we're going into executive session, and this does involve some security issues, there is some suggested motions to be made.
I move to find that premature general public knowledge regarding an update on cybersecurity would clearly place the Burlington Electric Department at a substantial disadvantage per Title I, Section 313A1 of Vermont statutes. I move that the commission enter into an executive session to discuss the update on cybersecurity.
We have a motion, do we have a second? Motion and seconded, all in favor?
Before you vote, can we just make clear that BED staff are able to stay on for the?
Yeah, well, and include BED's.
And include BED
Okay.
staff.
Staff.
Yes.
Thank you.
In the motion. Is that a friendly
Second.
amendment? Okay, great. All those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed indicate by saying nay. 5 ayes, 5 ayes, no nays. Motion passes. We are in executive session. We're out of executive session now. The last thing we have on our agenda is commissioners check-in. We were just explaining what that means. I have one thing, and it really should have gone on the thing above, is that I've been talking the talk for a few years. I'm now walking the walk. I bought a plug-in hybrid EV vehicle, and I am noticing that we definitely need more infrastructure around. When I go to some places, there's only 2 chargers, and they're always being used. So I'm feeling that crunch. But I'm loving just looking at gas stations and laughing, and come to the realization that I will never have to use gas locally at all. And really, I mean, I took it to Boston, and only used maybe 6-7 gallons totally back and forth.
Wow.
Anyway, just want to let you know that I've got skin in the game now. The incentives from it's a Mitsubishi Outlander 2024. The incentives from Mitsubishi, from the state, from BED, from the feds, significantly brought down the price of the vehicle. As well as BED will be paying for my level 2 charger that'll be going on my house next week. So any of you out there that are, I can certainly speak from personal, like now's a good time to jump in and then switch over to get off fossil fuels, because I'm loving this, the technology, the torque of these things, and just that I don't have to buy gas anymore, which is really kind of cool, kind of neat. Anyway, so I just wanted to share that. Anyone else?
Yeah, I had one quick item. I've been thinking about, there's the large development planned over here. That's, I forget the acronym for it, but over in the lakeside parking lot area. And I'm wondering, I know part of the discussion there is around like stormwater and sewer infrastructure. Is there a discussion around electrical infrastructure there? And I know it's residential and it may be not as significant as I think, but is that something that's in BED's plans?
Yeah, so in terms of that development, there's really, and with any development of that scale, regardless where it is in the city, there's 2 pieces primarily for us. There's the electrical service, which our engineering team works with any project developer and they have, they have to make sure that that's all adequate and connected and, good to go. Then there's the efficiency team that'll work with the developer, try to make sure that we can put incentives on the table and make the building as efficient as possible, or buildings in this case, as efficient as possible. I know there's a lot of conversations about geothermal, heat sources, heating and cooling for these types of developments. So our team is very engaged in those conversations as well. So we typically will engage on the front end in both ways.
Great, thank you so much.
Other comments from commissioners? Going once, twice? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved. Do I have a second?
Seconded.
Motioned and seconded. All in favor of adjourning, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
5 ayes, no nays. We are adjourned. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.